What is up, everybody? Welcome into the Staple Show. Shout, a Buffalo Bills football podcast. Sheila Atkins with the line of the night as Matt out trying to catch his turkey. We're about 10 minutes late here, and I wasn't, but I was just talking to Ryan about this. The last 2 years, we have been out of pocket for Thanksgiving, and we are hosting at my house. So it's just a little bit crazy right now. We're doing a million different things, trying to kind of fit everything in, Ryan. And one thing becomes crystal clear to me: how amazing my beautiful wife is, that she has done this all by herself for the last 2 years.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we were in Detroit last year, New Orleans 2 years ago, so we didn't have to worry about the preparations. If you have people over to the house, things like that. We were trying to find places that were open in New Orleans on Thanksgiving Day. That was a night game. I had a shrimp po' boy. We had minor problems compared to those that host these year in and year out.
You didn't have any problems finding things open the night before Thanksgiving, though, Ryan Talbot.
No, we had a good time. Good time.
Speaking of a good time, prepare for a Thanksgiving like no other with unbelievable savings on everything you need to create a memorable holiday meal. I know that we're in the final moments before Thanksgiving, but if you need a juicy golden turkey or fresh cranberries for cranberry sauce that's bursting with tangy sweetness, Tops has got it all and more. As you plan your Thanksgiving menu, make Tops your destination for savings. All right, Ryan, we have a lot to get into tonight. We have a super charged insider questions episode locked and loaded for everybody. I put out the call to our Shout Insiders today, and they delivered in a big way. So we'll get into a lot of that. But two big topics that I want to get into from the jump, and that is reflecting on the early returns of the switch from Ken Dorsey to Joe Brady and hearing people talk about it nationally. It's interesting because I was listening to Jordan Palmer. We had him on the podcast at the beginning of the season. He went on with Rich Eisen today. And it was interesting hearing him talk about what he thinks is the biggest difference from Dorsey to Brady, and talking about, and he was asked specifically about why Allen has struggled at times this season, while also pointing out what we've pointed out: the touchdown numbers, completion percentage numbers, all the good things that he's done. He brought something up again, Brian Daboll. And I feel like all of the people super connected to this thing that maybe aren't in the building every day are talking about what happened when that change happened from Daboll to Dorsey. And like, Ryan, if you go back to like late 2020, when I think that was when Staley was getting hired for the Chargers job, and people started, talking about Brian Daboll getting head coaching interviews, and us talking about who's the potential next OC for the Bills. I remember talking about that at the time. And if we have an insider out there or somebody that listens to the show a lot that can pull this piece out from one of those shows, I remember talking about some of my concerns for Ken Dorsey as the OC, just because of the potential personality traits that I felt like, I hate to put it this way, but like that he was lacking. I want to play a clip. And well, first, before I play the clip, what are your thoughts on that? And just how much they've maybe missed the extra stuff that Brian Daboll brought to the job: the FaceTimes, the fun, the energy, all those kinds of things.
Yeah, I think that's actually a great talking point, because Ken Dorsey, he was labeled as the mad scientist, but he wasn't ever labeled as this high energy, have the guys dancing, doing the FaceTimes over the off season, all the things that Brian Daboll did that the players just absolutely loved. And while we don't know about Joe Brady, he certainly brings a certain type of energy to this offense, from what we saw pregame on the field last week to what we're hearing from the players now.
Yeah, I was talking to this week's look at the opponent. I met up with Brooks Kupina from The Athletic, and that podcast is going to be out tomorrow afternoon. Give you some Thanksgiving, a little extra food on your Thanksgiving to dive into. And he covered Joe Brady at LSU, and he talked a little bit about it on the podcast yesterday. But he talked about just how much he was important to the diversity of that offense, from spinning through different options at the wide receiver position. And putting Jamar Chase, putting Terrence Marshall, putting Justin Jefferson in different situations and trying to find the best matchup and spinning the wheel a little bit so that they landed on those things. And that's where I think that he was so effective as the passing game coordinator there. And I learned that he was much more integral to that offense than maybe I had understood beforehand, in terms of play calling, in the meetings, working with the receivers. I mean, he's a former wide receiver, and you wonder how much those now, like, getting Brady on board doesn't get some of these Bills wide receivers excited about just that purview. I mean, Dorsey's a former quarterback, right? And sometimes having the ability to look into different position rooms is really important too. And that's something that Brian Dable, I remember Brandon Beane saying how much that was important when they were talking to him, because he had spent just a year studying with Dante Scarnecchia just on the offensive line.
Right.
He had been in different position groups. He spent a lot of times with Gronkowski in the tight ends room in New England. Like, he had done different things. And I wonder if Brady brings that all-encompassing appeal to this offense.
He very well may, Matt, and you're right. Having that all-around background, being able to work with the wide receivers, being able to have that knowledge of the quarterback position too, from playing in college. No matter the position, if you're playing on the offensive side of the ball, you have an understanding of what all the skill sets bring to the table, how you can utilize them for the best, and that's certainly something that Joe Brady has brought to the table here throughout his young career.
All right, so let's play this clip from Stefon Diggs today. And if you go back to last week, I pointed it out on a couple of our shows. Like, he was the one guy, despite the respect that he showed to Dorsey, was kind of, maybe this is something that we need, the switch to Brady. And it's very early, like Steph says, but these were the returns that he saw over the last week.
The preparation process, like, we got to having fun by preparing during the week and going out there and executing, bringing energy, and just the players and like Josh, all that kind of works in tandem. But I say it always is some carryover. Like, when you win, you want to get some snowball effect to get another one, and try to build them up in the win column, because obviously you can see we kind of been just like win, lose, or whatever, how it been. But for me, I feel like you can carry it over, but you more so carry over the preparation process. That preparation process is key. And I feel like I give a shout out real early, but I give a shout out to Coach Brady on bringing a lot of the juice. I think he drinks a lot of coffee and a lot of Monsters, or whatever the brand is, because he brings a lot of juice, and he lets you know that if y'all don't got it, I'm gonna bring it for you. So, I mean, it's obviously working, and let's keep it going. Yeah, have a good one. Thanks.
Steph Diggs made sure to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. He was in a good mood, and there's reason to be in a good mood with the way that offense played last week. And like, there's a lot of people hesitant about buying in on last week's performance, right? The Jets are this tire fire. The ship is going down offensively. I made the point last week, like, how long can this defense hold up, knowing how inept that offense is? But even with that being said, like, you do not hang 30 that conveniently on this Jets defense. Like, I'm buying in, Ryan, and I'm a little bit hesitant, like, knowing what we saw out of this team the last 6 weeks, but seeing the video of Josh Allen on the sideline, the swagger, saying that he feels like he's effing back, and like, Stefon Diggs talking about that and seeing that from him. I guess Allen went to Diggs before, or a couple teammates, and said, listen, if you see me kind of down, or you see me not acting a certain way, give me a kick in the butt. And like, to me, that's huge, because it feels like they're trying everything to get back to what where they had success. It's a good start. And I think good vibes here early from Brady.
Yeah, great vibes early from Brady. And, it's not just the vibes, it's not just the energy. It's taking this playbook, the Ken Dorsey offense, the Brian Dable offense, a meshing of the two, whatever you want to call it, and just implementing things pre-snap motion, not just for the sake of pre-snap motion, but to run different looks out of it, like they did early on in the game. First play, they had Diggs in motion, they faked it to him, they went to the other side. Second play, they had him in motion, they threw it to him. Things like that. Even the jet sweeps, just to have that in the playbook, the quarterback runs, just to have that is something opposing teams have to, game plan for. But then also scheming guys open, the way that he schemed James Cook open for his easy touchdown reception, the way that Ty Johnson was absolutely wide open on that 4th-and-1 conversion that he did the rest of the work on and went to the end zone, excuse me. So it's not just the energy, but the energy part is great too. And you do see certain players bring that energy to the sidelines. I watched the mic'd up piece, and you see Dalton Kincaid is this young kid that has a lot of the juice or energy on the sideline. You saw Steph Diggs and his leadership in that extended 10-minute mic'd up clip where he's going over to Dalton Kincaid and other players and just really keeping them kind of hyped up on the sideline. So, it's just one game, and you don't want to overstate it just yet, but it's certainly a step in the right direction.
Indeed. I want to get into this injury report here quickly, because as we look to the weekend and this game against the Eagles, which to me it's critical, because I don't think everything is on the line here. Like, I don't think it's a must-win game, and I said that on the radio on Tuesday, and I'm pulling back from that a little bit, because I still think that there's a path where you play a Kansas City team that just doesn't seem like they know where their offense is right now in 2 weeks, coming off a bye. You lose this game, maybe you go to 6-6. You come back, you go 7-6 for a huge game at home against Dallas. You win that game 8-6, and then all of a sudden you have some winnable games on the road against the Chargers, at home against the Patriots. So you could get to the Miami game with 10 wins just right there. And I know Dallas is playing about as good a football as anybody in the league right now. But listen, I buy into previous results until you prove otherwise. December Dak, December Lamar Jackson, it hasn't been pretty in previous years. And so, like, until they show that they can kind of flip the script a little bit on what they've been, I'm holding out on, this, superpower that these two teams are kind of looking to be. And that's coming from a guy that picked the Cowboys to go to the Super Bowl. Like, if you go back to my preseason, before training camp, I did the little, what are they? The little
the
mini helmets.
that everyone thought
The mini helmets. I put them together to do all the playoff matchups, and I had Dallas, and everybody was like, "Whoa, what are you doing? The Cowboys in the Super Bowl?" And it's like, I thought that they were gonna have a big year. I mean, CeeDee Lamb is like turning into the guy that I think a lot of people thought he could be. Dak's playing well, but everything's different when the calendar hits December, Ryan.
Yeah, everything is different, and I agree with you. This week is not a must-win game. Uh, the Bills have to win all their conference games left, essentially. They've been very poor within their own conference. So the Chiefs game is more important for that matter. Defeating the Chargers, defeating, their other AFC East rivals. Those are the important ones. And if they handle business in those games, they can get close to that 10-win point, or can get to the 10-win point. And then you obviously have games, though, against the Cowboys, who have had their ups and downs over the past few years, especially late in the season. So there's still a path there for the Bills, but they've dug themselves a hole, and they need to find a way out of it against some some really good and tough competition.
So the injury report came out today, the first one of 3. And obviously we have to start with Taron Johnson in the concussion protocol. And it's a tricky week, Ryan, because we didn't see practice today. It was a walkthrough. Tomorrow's off because of Thanksgiving. The Bills will practice, but the media will not be there. And then Friday is Fast Friday, where we only get to go out for the very beginning portion. So we may see Taron Johnson in a red jersey. We may not see him out there. So we'll get like just a baseline level of where he's at, but we won't be able to see him go through individual drills. So it's going to be really hard to project where he's at going into this weekend's game. And to me, out of everybody on this list, Dane Jackson with a concussion, DNP, I thought Christian Benford played really well when he came into the game for him. You know that they can bring up Jamarcus Ingram, Josh Norman they have available to them as well. Cam Lewis is on the injury report, limited today with the shoulder. He played really well, by the way, for Taron Johnson over the weekend. But I'm starting with Taron Johnson just because of this against this team. You need your best tacklers, and when we know what Taron Johnson does in that department.
Absolutely, and he's just so vital to this defense in general when everyone's healthy. But when you look at the injuries and the losses that they've had in terms of key players on their D line, and DeQuan Jones, linebacker Matt Milano, I would argue that in the secondary, he's probably their most important player at this point in everyone's respective careers. And if you don't have him out there in this matchup against a really good Eagles team, an Eagles team that likes to put A.J. Brown in the slot and use him in the middle of the field, and it's going to be a problem for this Bills team to try to figure it out. Now, Cam Lewis, like you said, stepped in. and played very well last week, but he's on the injury report with the shoulder injury, limited. So it's concerning. And, it was very concerning that just about every injury against the Jets last week was in that secondary. And they've already been banged up there. They already have guys playing at less than 100%. So, getting some of these guys ready and available and prepared is going to be the key to this game, and being able to make sure that they can stay on the field because, like you said, yeah, there's probably going to be an elevation of a Jamarcus Ingram or something like that. But this is not going to be an easy game considering how banged up they are on that back end, Matt.
So I see from Pops Mafia here in the comments, will they still put out a practice report tomorrow? They will. They'll put out the injury report, and it will say, who was limited, who was DNP. So we'll get a sense of what happened. But if you want a little bit more from what we're able to kind of take in during the individual periods, that just won't be available tomorrow. And it's Thanksgiving and everybody's gonna be eating a lot of turkey, so that's okay. If you're watching on YouTube right now, 250, we're cruising on a Wednesday night. Everybody's at home, everybody's getting ready. Although, isn't this supposed to be typically a really big party night?
Yeah, this
so maybe
is
people are pre-gaming
night of the
with
year.
shout. You think?
But then again, we're old, Matt. I don't think a lot of people are going out at 7:45 at night. I think they wait a little bit longer now.
Yeah,
At
they're
least for
pre-gaming,
my old
dude.
party days, I think it was 10 or 11 that you'd wait to go out for. So,
dude,
I'll be
I can't
fast asleep by then.
imagine some of those late
Fast
night
asleep.
Talbot nights back in college, back
at
on the campus at Bonnie's, just getting after it.
Shout out OP and the Burton.
I was going to say, did you keep the Olean Police Department on their toes, didn't you?
Allegheny in
excuse me.
territory.
Excuse me. All right. There you go. Kayla, our producer, says pregame starts at about 10 p.m. these days. I'll be fast asleep by then. So
let us know how it is, Kayla.
Yeah, let us know how it is. All right, let's move on. We're going to get to the question portion of the episode. That'll be the back half. But we got to get into Darius Leonard, Shaq Leonard. Excuse me. The Indianapolis Colts release him surprisingly, and I want to go into this whole situation and lay it out because I've been getting a lot of DMs, a lot of questions. What's up, Elliot Eisner over on YouTube? Eisler, excuse me, one of our regulars. What's up, buddy? So Shaq Leonard surprisingly gets cut. What happens is he hits the waiver wire. And if any team were to claim him off of waivers, they would be bringing on his current contract, which was $6 million this year. And I think you could get out of it after this year, but I mean, it was contracts for $20 million, $21 million in the next couple of years. So it stood to reason that nobody was going to claim him. He was going to hit the free agent market because nobody wanted to take on that contract. And that's what happened. So he clears waivers. Now he's able to sign with any team. And because of the drop off in production, you're looking at probably the veterans minimum for him to kind of join a good team, try to have a good season, then up his value for free agency next year. We've seen this story play out a bunch of times. And, a lot of people have been blowing up my DMs asking if he's somebody that fit. And obviously he plays weak side linebacker. That after Matt Milano was injured was an area where we started talking about on this show, can they go elsewhere? Can they find somebody to plug in there? Can they bring in some free agents? Can they do some different things? Ryan, don't look now, but Tyrel Dotson has been the top graded Pro Football Focus linebacker in all of football since he took over this job. Over 300 snaps. He has a 91, I think, ish overall defensive grade through 300 snaps. I mean, if you want to talk about just holy crap story here with Tyrel Dotson, we have it. He goes from being this whipping boy for Bills Mafia, a portion of it at least, to being now this all of a sudden really integral part. And listen, they're going to play a lot tougher offenses, this gauntlet here over the next 4 weeks. It is really tough. But to get this quality level of play from Dotson, I'm out on this idea of Leonard.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I'm out. I think there's going to be better opportunities for him, though. I believe I saw a report that Dallas and Philly are both teams that are expected to be interested in him. And Dallas recently had a linebacker go down for the year, so maybe that's the best spot for him. the Bills would certainly give him an opportunity, but you're right. Dotson's playing really good football. They have Dorian Williams waiting in the wings, and I know he was pulled quite a few times off the field, but he is still someone that the Bills have invested in pretty heavily with a day 2 pick. So he's part of their equation. I'm not completely out on the idea of it, but with the way that Dotson has been playing as of late, there's no reason for the Bills to be overly eager in terms of trying to replace him. He has answered every question. You know, he had a nice strip on one of the plays recently. He's making good plays in the defense. He's always been outstanding in run defense. He's showing a little bit more in pass defense as well. So, like you said, he's being graded highly, but he's also playing very well on tape when you're watching him. Because I know not everyone agrees with all of PFF's metrics and grades. He passes the eye test as well.
Yeah, and we've been talking about him, in the last couple of weeks. This isn't something like a new development or anything like that. The thing for me too, and I do agree with you, like I'm not out on the idea, but it all depends on the conversation with Leonard. Like if you want to come in here and you want to be handed the job from the jump, that's probably not going to happen. So like where's your headspace? Because it felt like there was a little bit in Indianapolis, like he felt a certain type of way about not playing and, having a reduced role. And maybe that led to what this ultimate outcome was. And I think back to the Christian Kirksey situation earlier this season. He just up and decided to retire after coming in here. And a lot was made by me included about his arrival. And it was just like, I think he looked around the room a little bit and saw, okay, Tyrell Dotson's here. Terrell Bernard is this young up and coming buck. Like, I don't really see a path to playing. And he just decided to retire.
Yeah, you're right. And it's different scenarios, obviously, but wherever he lands too, you would like to think that he would have some kind of familiarity with the playbook, with the coach, something like that. And I don't think there's any links here in Buffalo for Leonard in this case. So learning the scheme, learning the defense, that can take some time. So it will be interesting to see where he lands and how quickly he gets on the field. I do see some comments in here saying he hasn't been the same since a back surgery. He has looked like a shell of his former self. At one point, he was one of the best linebackers in this league, and he has not played like it as of late. That's not to say that he can't get back there, that he's not worth, a roll of the dice on. It's just it might be tough to convince him to come to Buffalo, one, based on where they are right now in the standings, and two, based on the fact that Dotson's playing so well at this point in
time. Yes, super chat here. Jeff King, YouTube. Jeff, thank you so much. Dropping 5 on a Wednesday night. Listen, save that money though. Like or maybe Jeff's not. Maybe he's like us. Maybe he's in that older category. He's not going out tonight. He's not going to be buying drinks, doing all that kind of stuff. Getting involved in that debauchery. I think I've only went out on Thanksgiving Eve one time, and man, was it an affair. And I only did it one time, and there was probably a reason for that. I was a little bit older. Like I was late to the party, Ryan. I think that's must be it. But the super chat is, guys, thank you for the content as always. Happy Thanksgiving to you both and your families. And let me take this opportunity to shout out everybody that listens to Shout a Buffalo Bills Football Podcast. Insiders, longtime listeners / viewers, new to the party, all of the people that support this show. We are beyond grateful for you. You make this thing go. You make this thing worthwhile for both of us. We're so thankful for that support. And happy Thanksgiving to you and yours. And however you celebrate this week, I hope you guys enjoy it.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Thank you, Jeff, for the super chat.
But speaking of insiders, you can become an insider today and talk with Ryan and me as much as you want to. Send us text, send us angry text, send us excited text, send us questions, comments, concerns. Become a Shout Insider, 716-528-6727. That's 716-528-6727. Become an insider, and the Shout text line is brought to you by Carrie C. Beyer, attorney with the law offices of Francis M. Litro, located at 237 Main Street, Buffalo, New York. If you or someone you know is seriously injured, give him a call at 716-852-1234 or check out litrolaw.com. All right, Ryan, we have to get into the Shout Insider questions that were sent in today. And we'll start with Katie, who asked, can you attribute the offense's energy and showing on Sunday against the Jets to Joe Brady, or to a change generally? Do you think from what you saw that the offense showed signs of different managing enough that it had to have been Joe's fingerprints? What are your thoughts on that, Ryan?
Well, the energy part, I mean, Stefon Diggs pretty much answered for us today, saying how Joe Brady has brought the energy during the week. And if you don't bring it, I'm going to bring it, and everything that he said. Brady definitely deserves a big piece of the credit for the energy that we saw from this offense on Sunday against the Jets. Obviously, there are guys on this team that always bring the energy. On the offense side of the ball, you always have Deion Dawkins getting the crowd riled up. On defense, Jordan Phillips is always trying to get the crowd into it. But the players themselves, the way that they were running around, the way that Allen ran down Khalil Shakir and slapped him on the helmet what felt like a dozen times, and the way James Cook was, jumping into the crowd after his touchdown, things like that. They definitely did seem to have a little bit more energy, and maybe some of that was just kind of trying to bring it out of themselves, trying to get themselves going a little bit. But certainly, I think Brady deserves a ton of the credit for that.
Yeah, and I think like there's resolve in the organization because they've been here before. Like that's a piece of this. Like I think that when you have like past experience to feed off of or to energize team meetings, like that's something that Josh has mentioned several times. Like we've been here before. We know what it's like to have our backs up against the wall. I'm paraphrasing there, but that's really important. And so when you go out and you try to reclaim this energy, this superhero like energy, and it's funny hearing Diggs talk about it today. He's like, when I can, because Rasul Douglas actually credited him with, before his second game, going over to him and saying, listen, don't press, be yourself. Like, don't overthink it. Just go out and play. And that was huge for Douglas, who, if we remember talking about it when they traded for him, he was the guy giving that message to everybody in the building back in Green Bay. So to have that kind of shift in the powers, and Diggs kind of mentioned, like, when I can, I go up to guys and put a battery in their back. Like, I thought that was kind of cool how he kind of thinks of things sometimes, but it's easy to do that when you have all of these skeletons in the closet, if you will, right? 13 seconds, getting beat down in your first AFC title game together, the Cincinnati game, the DeMar Hamlin situation, like all of the adversity that this team has faced over the years, collectively, they could draw from that. And I think that that's part of what I think if you're sitting here at 6-5 right now, knowing the daunting schedule that sits ahead, to me, that's where you could kind of, feed off of that stuff as well.
Oh, absolutely. You can feed off of that as well. And I love the part about Diggs talking to Rasul Douglas and how Rasul Douglas reacted to that. 2 interceptions and a fumble recovery, and the way that he covered Garrett Wilson last week. I mean, he was just on him. He knew when to break on the ball. He showed why the Bills were so excited about acquiring him at the deadline. And it was everything Brandon Beane said. He creates turnovers, and sure enough, that's what he's doing, or what he did against this Jets team. And, it's what the Bills are going to need from him against some really tough offenses down the stretch.
All right, we have another one here from Christy, one of our regulars in the Shout Insider text line. She asks, what are your thoughts on the offensive line? This year, they have stayed without injuries and been able to work as a whole unit. We don't seem to hear much on Edwards and McGovern. Has Bates seen any playing time? How is the rookie Osiris Torrance holding up? I have a lot of thoughts on this. I will let you start, though, Ryan. But before I do, I must say, how about David Edwards running a play as basically a tight end in motion last week? I mean, talk about the athleticism of that guy. That was pretty sweet.
It was pretty sweet, but to answer this question, in my opinion, this is the best offensive line that Josh Allen has had in front of him in his career in Buffalo. And that's, I'm not saying that's saying something, because there's been some underwhelming units. But I look at Deion Dawkins. You could argue that this has been his best year of his career. He's having a really nice bounce back season from what I would consider a down year in 2022. Connor McGovern doesn't seem to get a lot of love from Pro Football Focus, but every time I watch him, he's doing his job and doing his job well. He's doing everything that I think Buffalo was expecting him to do when they signed him in free agency. Mitch Morse, still a big Mitch Morse guy, still someone that I like his skill set. But he's also a player that has to lean on his athleticism more than his physicality. He's getting a little bit older. If there was one spot that maybe the Bills need to look down the road to try to replace sooner rather than later, it might be to find the heir apparent there, unless they think that's Ryan Bates. Osiris Torrance seemed to hit a wall a few weeks ago after a really strong start, but I think he's rebounded nicely the past few games. And then at right tackle, Spencer Brown has answered every question I think that people had about him going into this year. The durability with the back issues, can he hold up in terms of just simply playing the position? I think that he's had a really good year at right tackle. Has he been perfect? Absolutely not. But this is by far his best season. And then with Edwards has come in a lot as that extra O-lineman, has a lot of familiarity with Aaron Cromer. I feel like Cromer in year 2 has really coached these guys up, and this is the best that I've seen them play. What about you, Matt?
So my concern level for Torrance is moderate, but it's rising. Like, I think we're entering a portion of the schedule where he's going to face some elite defensive lines.
Yes.
And my concern there is if he's hit a rookie wall, as some of our listeners have mentioned in the comments on YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button. Then this thing is going to only maybe go from bad to worse for him. And that's a concern. PFF obviously gave him a very low grade, I think under 10 for pass blocking in this last game. I don't know if it was that bad. But the bright side of all of this, like even with Torrance kind of fighting through that wall, if that's the case or whatever the case may be, and maybe that if I get a chance, I'll try to talk with him on Friday or maybe next week. Look at this pass protection chart from Ben Baldwin, who puts out this composite ratings every week on pass blocking. And it's unbelievable to see the Bills, who, Brandon Beane has gotten so much heat over the years for not building a wall in front of Josh Allen from a pass blocking perspective. Well, he seems to have accomplished the mission. And through 11 weeks, the Bills have the highest score of composite rankings on this list in terms of pass blocking. And what it does is it takes the PFF grade, Sports Information Solutions, their metric, and then ESPN's pass block win rate, and it puts them all together. And if you combine all of those numbers together, the Bills are the number 1 ranked offensive line pass blocking unit in the NFL, Ryan. I mean, that's crazy to think about. I think a lot has to do with the continuity. They've played the whole season together. And if you're a Bills fan, you're knocking on wood right now because, you need this to continue. But I agree with Josh Allen's assessment today. It starts for me with Deion Dawkins. He's playing the caliber of football that we saw at the end of 2021. He's been a stabilizing force for this unit. They're letting him have some fun. They're getting him out in space at times. He's been really good. And I think he's setting the standard for this whole unit. And also, I'll let you get to this now, but I got a lot of thoughts on this. Spencer Brown's play this year has forced me to pivot off of what I was thinking earlier this season, that you take your draft capital that you've accumulated this offseason and you move it around and you go get a tackle. I don't think you need to be as aggressive now that you've seen this kind of uptick for Spencer Brown. But it also brings up a question. What's the long-term viability of Dawkins at left tackle? Do you have any visions of moving him inside? And then maybe Spencer Brown is going out and getting a tackle. Is this the year that you want to invest there? Because there's other needs too. They got to go defensive tackle probably because of what's going on at that position. There's nobody under contract but Ed Oliver past this season.
Yeah, and listen, I would probably throw wide receiver 2 into the mix too for the
100%.
draft in terms of what the Bills might do with their first round pick, because I think it's going to be hard to get Gabe Davis back here unless it was a very agreeable contract for the team, because what he might be trying to get just doesn't seem maybe attainable to the Bills based on their cap space, based on his production. But anyways, back to the offensive line, Matt. The metrics all say something, but, just watching that Jets game, the Jets have tormented Josh Allen and pressured Josh Allen, got after him year after year after year. In that game, they had 4 quarterback hits and 1 sack. That says something. And then I know that was a pass blocking grade, being first in the league. I know they're not elite in terms of run blocking, but there needs to be a little bit of a discussion on their run blocking. James Cook is number 4 in the league right now, Matt, in rushing yards. Number 4. That feels like it flies under the radar because when we think of this offense, You think of Josh Allen, Stefon Diggs, Dalton Kincaid is getting a lot of shine, and rightfully so. We've been talking up Khalil Shakir a lot as of late, again, and rightfully so. And as much as we like James Cook, when we talk about him, the fact that at this point in the season, he's in the top 5 in rushing yards, it's flown completely under the radar, in my opinion, at least nationally, how nice of a season he's having.
No, I think you're right on the money with what Cook's done and his importance to the game. I mean, like having that dual threat and being able to kind of line him outside. It's funny because the Bills, like, I don't know if it's the Sean McDermott vibe on their offense, but it's so weird when they go into empty with the running back out there and Latavius Murray somehow manages to be the outside boundary wide receiver, and you're just like, what, don't you want to throw James Cook in there for that? Like that just seems like his role. But as a runner, I think he's exceeded even the most like dramatic expectations. Like he's been consistent. They've at times put a workload on him. I don't think he's going to be amongst the top 10 in the league when it comes to usage perspective at the end of the season. But you start small. I mean, it's his second year. And one of the things with Cook going back to his college days is like he's never been a bell cow back. And I don't think you need him to be. I think they like the balance that they've struck. And now all of a sudden, maybe you have something with Ty Johnson who looks like he's running. You know who Ty Johnson's game last week reminded me of? Isaiah Pacheco for the Kansas City Chiefs. You ever see the way that Pacheco runs with the ball? Like he runs like he's Forrest Gump every single time the ball is in his hands. He is just like, he's coming down the driveway, he's spinning around the corner, and he's taking off. Like that's the vibes I got from Ty Johnson. And sometimes these guys that, get an opportunity, like late round draft picks, UDFAs, like that have a speed element to their game. Like, when you can lean into that and use it, that's a dynamic that is interesting. Fournette's not bringing that dynamic, Ryan.
No, he's not bringing the burst or the speed that Ty Johnson has, or that James Cook has. He does have the between the tackles rushing. He does have the pass catching coming off of his 73 catch season. But you're right, the skill set in terms of the speed, it's not there. And coming off of the game that the Bills just had, I don't necessarily think that you need to have Fournette in your mind as a possible elevation. It's someone great to have on the practice squad in case of an injury. There's no doubt about that. But Ty Johnson probably earned a little bit more runway. And when you also factor in how good he is on special teams, that's another thing to take into consideration. You know what you have in James Cook. You know what you have in Latavius Murray. So the backfield's been solid. And great point from you that looking at the top 5 backs in this league, Cook isn't even coming close in terms of usage or carries to guys like Christian McCaffrey, and I'm assuming nowhere close to the amount of carries that Travis Etienne has and some of these other guys on that list, and yet he's still producing at a high clip.
We got a lot of questions here in the insider chat line, and if you're interested, if you want to get involved in the party, I know we always bring in YouTube questions too, and we're going to continue to do that. But the access to us is so much cleaner if you become an insider. 2-week free trial. Check it out. 716-528-6727. That's 716-528-6727. Ryan and I are a great tag team. We take turns trying to get back to everybody when they're asking us questions throughout the week. And then we, bring a big haul of questions in every few weeks in season. And we got a lot of ideas for this thing in the off season as well. Next one, let's go to the Ultimate Warrior, which, by the way, I love the fact that that's his name in here.
Yep.
Like, I don't know if he was able to set that or if that's like if you have an iPhone and you got like a friend contact, you got to accept their contact list. Right. And then whatever their name is, it just autofills. And so maybe this guy's just like in his own phone. He's like the Ultimate Warrior. I don't know. Maybe he'll listen to this and he'll respond to us and he'll tell us how he got the Ultimate Warrior name. But that's pretty sweet, Ryan.
Yeah, it is. And he's a regular contributor in the chat, someone that we hear from a lot and get back to. So love answering his questions.
Just wanted you guys to touch on the options for replacing Gabe Davis, if not signed next year. Do the Bills go after a player like T. Higgins or someone with a similar frame and skill set? Thanks, guys. You rock. Happy Thanksgiving. Warrior. Happy Thanksgiving. Ryan, I'm out on the idea of a Higgins level signing. You already have $25 million invested at the receiver position with Diggs. You have a young player in Shakir who I think is developing. And who's to say that you don't get Gabe Davis back on a really low-end deal? I think he's honestly played himself out of that Jacoby Myers money. I think he's probably looking more in that $7 to $9 million range, which I think that you could stomach. Maybe you do a 1-year deal so that he can try to come back and then hit the free agent market again. And then to your point earlier in the show, I think you got to draft a wide receiver. I think you got to make it a priority. I think of all the positions we mentioned, you can bolster the offensive line later in the draft. Defensive tackle, Aleem McNeil. I was banging the table for this guy a couple years, Ryan. And now look at him. He's becoming a superstar. Big guy in the middle for the Detroit Lions. Biting kneecaps for Dan Campbell. It's like I tried to warn you, but anyway, you can handle that later in the draft. There's guys like that. But wide receiver, I think you get aggressive and you go up and get the one that you want. We've seen what it means this year. Jordan Addison coming in and making a huge impact year one. Zay Flowers as well.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at. I think the draft is the most likely spot. And I know, some people would have some reservations about that. Do you really want to have a rookie as your wide receiver too? Well, a lot of these guys are coming in and they're producing pretty quickly as rookies, and you would still have Stefon Diggs. And this player, if you like them enough, might even be the heir apparent for Stefon Diggs. T. Higgins would be an outstanding option, but in my opinion, he's a wide receiver 1, and he's going to get paid like a wide receiver 1. So the Bills don't have the cap space for a player like that. When you get into that next level or next tier of wide receivers, you might find someone that can come in and contribute, but it's hard to find a regular number 2 type of receiver without breaking the bank these days. So I think the draft is the best avenue there. Add some veterans though for the later part of the depth chart in terms of that position.
How many likes do you think we have live right now on YouTube? We have over 300 watching, Ryan. How many likes on this video?
Not enough.
79, Ryan. We gotta get that thing up, man. If you are watching on
more.
YouTube right now, smash it. Tell them how to do it, Ryan.
Well, it's pretty simple. There's just a little like button. Just hit it. Smash it. Doot. Isn't that the word that Dalton Kincaid used?
That is.
Is that right? Yeah.
You brought it into the program with energy.
Hit it with the
a lot of energy, Ryan.
So I will say this. I've watched some podcasts before on YouTube, and if you're not logged in, you can't do it. So, make sure you're logged in when you're watching us live and hit that like button.
Yeah, hit that like button. And I don't know if you could actually do it when you're watching on TV. I love that, by the way. That to me is such a vibe when you're able to pull up the YouTube video with some dinner in the living room, bring the kids in. It's family friendly, right? We try to keep it PG on the program.
Right.
Like, none of that McAfee business with all this swearing all the time. All right. Just kidding.
And I do like it when people send us the pictures with us up on the TV. It's pretty cool. It's pretty humbling.
Yeah. You need more humbling, Ryan. You're a real cocky individual. All right. Steve Saviano, excuse me. Maybe Osiris has gotten to the rookie wall. Hasn't missed a snap all season, but he's been a really pleasant surprise. Is it possible that Ryan Bates, remember him, gets some time if Torrance continues to struggle?
It's a great question. I just don't know if the Bills would want to pull him in terms of the continuity that he's built with this O-line. In terms of, we haven't seen much from Bates this year. We know Bates is a capable player on the inside end at guard. I think Torrance would have to be really, really bad in some of these games against like the Eagles and against the Chiefs for the Bills to consider that. And I like Bates for who he is, but I'm not sure you're getting much of an upgrade if you throw him in there at that spot.
I think that's a good answer, and we kind of covered that already as well. John actually throws in an interesting topic, and I love your take on it. I will provide mine as well. He says he'd like a question asked of Josh Allen and Stefon Diggs someday, and maybe I will, but I'd like to react to this. Love them both, but really hate hearing how there is nothing to do in Buffalo. What exactly do they want to do that they can't do other than surf in the ocean? Seriously, have them tell us how crappy our city is. Just rubbed me wrong, and nobody ever calls them out on it. And actually, this has been something that I've noticed that Josh says a lot too. And what's funny about that, the juxtaposition of it, is that he also talks about how much he loves Buffalo because it's his vibe of a city. So like when he says it, and this is me just guessing, and the best person to ask is Josh about this maybe next week. I think he's saying it in like a perception based way. Like, there's nothing to do in Buffalo. That's what everybody thinks. But, I think Josh pretty much enjoys his time in Buffalo and enjoys. Now, Diggs, on the other hand, he probably would like a bigger city, like a better party vibe. Though there's limitations there, but I don't necessarily think you have to have everything that you want in the city that you're playing in to be happy there.
Yeah. No, I think that's well said, and that's what the offseason is for too, in terms of going where you want to be, in terms of the nightlife, in terms of Stefon Diggs is big into fashion and things like that. Yeah, the fashion scene at Buffalo is probably lacking. A lot of Zubaz, a lot of oversized sweatshirts and winter coats, but he can walk the runway in the off season. He can go to all the fashion shows out of the country and things like that. Then but I get where they're coming from. There are certain things, certain aspects, the nightlife, things like that. But in season, those aren't the things you should be looking to be doing anyways. Teams generally have curfews throughout the week, especially closer to game day. So I think Buffalo is really good in that respect in terms of keeping players focused on the game itself.
To me, what I would take bigger issue with was Allen's comments on the fans, right? Like not knowing if that's what his intention was. And we never really drilled into that. And maybe at some point this season or the off season we could. But like, listen, we see some of the people, like even in just the fan media space, like the guys over at Cover One, Eric Turner, who is just brilliant with the way that he breaks down the game and understands the game. And there's a huge chunk of the fan base that is super dialed into the specifics of how football works and like the intricacies of it all. And sometimes I feel like it's super, it doesn't feel right to take a shot at them, knowing how much time, money, effort that they invest into all of this. And sometimes, and I even put this out, this is kind of like a sidebar here that really just irritated me the other day with Brandon Staley's press conference when he said, he stood at the podium and he said, "I'm not here to talk to the fans." Because one of the questions was posed to him by one of the reporters, like, fans maybe don't believe that you should be calling the defense. And he kind of responded like, "I'm not here to talk to the fans." It's like, wait a second, Brandon. The only reason you're standing at that podium is to answer to the fans. Like that is why you are in the job that you're in, that you get to be in the world that you're in, is because there is this unbelievable like ecosystem of people that love football and like, pay all this money and devote all this time to the sport that creates the NFL. And a lot of times in the locker room, like I feel like sometimes players, there's so many great interactions with players, like most of them are, but occasionally there's just bad ones. And, it almost feels like they feel that they're having to answer to me, Matt Parrino, because I'm asking them a question. When in reality, I'm just a middleman in this. I'm the arm of the fan base. And like, I'm holding that recorder for them so that they can get dialed in, understanding, answer questions. Like that's how this thing is supposed to work. And sometimes I feel like just the overall way that it works is lost on people on both sides of it.
Sure. And listen, Brandon Staley wouldn't have that much of an attitude about that question if he was doing a better job coaching that very talented team. So I think he knows his days are numbered there based on the talent expectations and what he's produced thus far.
My wife just said, "Whoa, you're going to burst into song." I didn't know if I was that animated, was I? But I wasn't feeling well like an hour ago. I've been taking all this medicine. By the way, I've gotten some feedback the last couple shows about my cough, because I've had this cough, Ryan, going back
forever,
to before
forever.
London, dude.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell people about your first meeting with this cough? When was that?
I feel like it was actually before. It might have been like one of the first games of the season up in the press box. You were hacking
But
a little
no,
bit.
tell people about London. How you dealt
Just
with the cough in London.
yeah, a lot of sleepless nights in London, hearing that Parrino cough throughout the evening, and but I survived. I'm still here, and
So we had an Airbnb,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you were sleeping in the other room, and we were in rooms like right next to each other. And man, bless your heart, I was coughing, dude. I was hacking up a lung in that bedroom, and you never complained. You woke up every day with a smile, and we hit the streets and in old London town, and we got after it, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. Listen, this was not like a mansion of an Airbnb either. We were just feet apart, probably based on those
That's
rooms.
my bad. Yeah, I booked that.
No,
I
no,
don't have a lot of experience in the
got the
Airbnb
job
department,
done.
but yeah, it got the job done. Anyway, so this morning I took just like a myriad of pills. I got the Mucinex going. I got an antibiotic going. I just went to the doctor. Antibiotic going. I got a steroid going for the cough. I took some Flonase last night. So there's a lot going on in the system right now, trying to push this thing through. And man, did I just not feel it? But I sat down. We got going on Shout, and man, I'm a new man. I'm feeling rejuvenated.
So it sounds like you're on too much stuff to enjoy that Sarah Jessica Parker wine that the missus bought tonight, huh? Not going to dive into that?
No, I'm not a big wine guy. I'm probably gonna get some. Dude, really? We're going off the rails in the YouTube.
Yeah,
comment.
that comment. Yeah, no.
Come on.
That will not help your
Come
cause.
on, Dobbs. Come on, Dobbs. Like did we have to go there? Did we have to go there? We sometimes, just get your head out of the gutter. All right, couple more here before we get out. Scott Blakely, do you think it's possible for the Bills to win out?
No. If I'm being honest, I haven't seen enough consistency from this team. If you can somehow pull off wins the next 2 weeks, you might be able to turn me into somewhat of a believer, but the consistency hasn't been there. And it's not just even that. It's how ravaged they are on defense and how it seems like every time there is an injury, it's on that side of the ball and they're battling through these things. I don't think running the table is a possibility, but I think that they can go the rest of the way with, 1 or 2 losses. And then, see where the chips fall at that point in terms of a playoff spot.
Dude, look at Dave Radsky sending us the pick. He's watching on the TV at home, Thanksgiving Eve, hooking it up in here. Dave, got us on the big screen. We appreciate you, buddy. I want to give you the shout out. I got that thing up real quick. Do you like that? That's technology, Ryan. That's how you produce and do it live all at the same time. Over 300 watching live. We really appreciate it. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel as well. Tell your friends and family. You're all getting together tomorrow on Thanksgiving. Tell them what you did on Wednesday night. You're watching Shout. You got to subscribe on YouTube. There you go. Get things going. Can the Bills win out? Wow. I don't want to say definitively no. Is that too much? Maybe I am on the sauce. I don't know. But I do think that there is something to be said for the way that they finished last season and something that they can kind of reach back to. My concern is more defensively than it is, especially with Taryn's injury. If he can't go this week, that's a real big question mark for me. But could they theoretically win out? I mean, yeah, they could. There's a 10% chance that they could, I guess, right? They're really tough games, but you could pick holes into all these teams. You could find reasons why they can win all these games. So I'm not going to say definitively no. Very unlikely though.
Fair, very fair.
You got anything else on that, Ryan? While I look for the
I kind of already answered that one first, so
all right,
we're on the same page.
All right, Tanya, this will be the last one. Von Miller is a good place to end. Lots of talk about his lack of production. My question is he being effective in ways that aren't necessarily measured? Drawing double teams, freeing somebody else up. Fact is, we're just coming up on a year. I don't think we should be sounding the alarms yet and hate that some people are. That being said, how do you see McDermott handling him moving forward? How does he balance building up his confidence and getting him close to back to where he was pre-injury versus those who are actually making the play? So first off, there's a lot to dive into there that she brought up. I do think that the alleged hate that we've seen on social media about Von, it's been over the top to me. I know there's frustrations with this season. I know he makes a lot of money, but man, has he not just been the ultimate statesman since coming in here? Great teammate. He's really close with Josh. He's always kind of pushing up all those guys. I think he's one of the good ones where you give the benefit of the doubt to. It seems like he's doing everything he can. And listen, At 34, I don't want to make excuses for the guy, but at 34 years old, this was always going to be a daunting recovery. I'm not overreacting to the fact that we're, excuse me, like 180 snaps in and he's not where you need him to be yet. I put out a tweet the other day on Monday because I've seen a lot of this. And I said, I am not giving up on the hope for Bills fans that Von Miller gets back to somewhere close to what we saw last season before the injury. And I don't think we're really going to know till we get to around that 300th snap. He didn't have any training camp. Like, this is still like build him up mode. I mean, really, if you want to talk about reps, right? Remember we talked about Spencer Brown last year with how many reps he missed in the summer? Just think about how many reps Von Miller has missed and how many now he's got to take before he gets to a point of just where you'd be in September and October. So I think by the end of December, we'll get a much more clear picture. I think we might get a chance to talk to him on Friday. So we'll get a sense of where he's at with the brace, because I know a lot of fans think that's something that's been a holdup. But watching him rush, Ryan, it just seems like, he's relying on his speed, his athleticism a lot. And that's usually like kind of almost rushing him out of the play at times.
Right. Yeah. You see him get pretty far out of the picture, or trying to come around on a play where a lot of times quarterbacks don't hold the ball that long. The pass rush arsenal is not where it needs to be right now. But as the person who asked the question stated, we're only at about a year since this injury took place in the first place. The fact that he was able to come back when he did and get on the field, it has been eye opening in terms of his age and how quickly he could get back out there. So, at the end of the season, we'll have a better idea, but he does provide that leadership off the field. He does do a lot of good things in that regard. Who knows if Leonard Floyd signs here, if maybe Von Miller's not here, having that familiarity with him. And we all know how good Leonard Floyd has been at this season. So there's little things you can point to and how he has still helped this team, but as a pass rusher, hasn't been very consistent. But there's a reason for that. One, they're limiting his reps. They're getting good production out of Greg Rousseau, AJ Epinesa. Shaq Lawson made a nice play last week too. So they have a good rotation right now where they're not pressing him onto the field for significant snaps week after week. But you're right. You hope that by the end of the season, you do see some flashes of the Von of old, getting to the quarterback, making those plays, being able to do something in crunch time when they need him.
Tony Brooks bringing the heat in the comments here. Look at this. These two guys are total failures in life, and they have a terrible aurora.
Yeah, I think he meant aura.
I think he meant aura.
Threw an O in there.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Like, spelling's hard. And like, listen, you're on a computer, so I know that you can access Google, but that's okay. Like, just throw it out there. We've heard this a lot, Ryan, about you and I, that we just got like a bad aura, Something about our aura just doesn't feel great.
You know what? I'm going to work on that in the bio.
Work on that for next time, Ryan. Thank you. I appreciate that. Final note on the Von thing. Sorry, a little levity on the show, a little fun. How is McDermott handling him moving forward? And I think that's interesting because Sean was asked about that today. It might have been Monday. I'm kind of putting them two together about Von's snap count and why he hit the number that he did. And he mentioned it's a game-to-game thing. And I think that's smart. Like, let him go into a game and let him tell you how he's feeling, and then base how much you play him on how he's feeling that game. And I think you're going to eventually hear over the next couple of weeks, maybe land into a spot where he's feeling really good. And maybe you land on a game where you can play him 30 and maybe you start to see a little bit more production. I mean, he had a pressure in this last game, which I feel like is a start. You're looking for any kind of spark.
Yeah, that's just it. And Von knows his body better than anyone else. He knows when he's, feeling it in terms of getting after the quarterback and how he's moving on the field. So I think that Sean McDermott works with him, talks to him each week to see how he's feeling, and they kind of go from there.
All right. Speaking of going from here, we got a couple things we got to go to before we get out of here. And we can wish you a happy Thanksgiving. Two things. Number one, Shout Live is back in your life. December 2nd, we are coming back to 700 Military Road, Wingnuts, North Buffalo. Do not miss it. The event page is now live. I'm going to put a link to the Facebook event page in the description here, so you could just go say you're going or interested over on Facebook. I'll give you a reminder so you know it's the bye week. So we'll have a lot to dive into. It'll be kind of our final progress report of the season before we hit the final stretch. And it gives us a chance to have wings, beer, drinks with all of you. It is a great time. It'll be the real start of Christmas season, Ryan. It's gonna be a fun time.
That's right. Be there December 2nd, Bills Mafia. Always have a great time at Wingnuts.
That's it. That's your big sell at the end.
That's it.
Dude, you really, I was hoping you were going to bring some like fire there with like, what can they expect when Ryan Talbot is live at Wingnuts, North Buffalo?
The drinks get flowing. We go around, we hang out post show. It's like I said, it's a great time. We do the photo ops. I love that. I'm shocked anyone wants a picture with this mug, but always down for that. And your father-in-law is a master photographer at these shows, so come on, come and join us at Wingnuts.
Nikki said Ryan's broken. I can't agree more. And then Sheila, pick me up, Ryan. I will ride with you. LOL.
See?
Boom. You got yourself a sidekick. Road buddy.
Right.
Let's
That's
go.
right.
I love it.
Can't
All right.
wait.
We're brought to you by Tops Friendly Markets. Download the Tops Markets mobile app. Make your life super simple. Get the most out of your shopping experience. Check out all the amazing benefits you have at the palm of your hand. Select your preferred store, browse and shop the weekly ad, or by specific department. Easily locate products at your preferred store with our built-in aisle directory. Enjoy contactless shopping with Tops grocery pickup or delivery services, and clip digital coupons directly to your Tops Bonus Plus card. Get the Tops Markets mobile app today. He's Ryan Talbot. I am Matt Parrino. Enjoy your Thanksgiving, everybody. Send us out, Ryan.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving, Bills Mafia. Thank you for your continuous support. We'll see you again on Friday.
That still wasn't good enough. I'm so disappointed in you. Have a great Thanksgiving, everybody. We are thankful for you.